What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dynasty Pros IDP Show. And I'm your host, Bob Miller. You can follow me at DynastyBobFF on Twitter. And make sure you go check us out at dynastyprosfootball.com for all your latest rankings and Dynasty trade values, IDP trade values. And don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube and hit that little notification bell as well to let you know when we go online. So without further ado, I want to introduce a very, very special guest to the show, and that is Jorge Edwards from fantasyandframes.com. Jorge, sir, how are you?
Bob, I am ecstatic to be on this show. I'm excited to talk to you. I feel like it's been forever since you and I caught up. It was a pleasure meeting you last year at the Expo and just maintaining our dialogue over the course of the past year and knowing your passion for IDP. To be asked to be on the show today, I can't wait to talk shop with you, man.
I'm right there with you, my friend. Absolutely. I love it. We can't get enough of it, and it can't grow fast enough. I'm telling you, it's slowly creeping up there. A lot more people are getting involved, and everyone that gets involved in IDP absolutely loves it. Mm-hmm. You know, but there's a handful of people that just don't. They get a little timid. They get a little afraid. Maybe it's a little, I don't know, a little more or a little much for them. I mean, what do you think? I mean, because I know, like with me, when I invite people to IDP leagues all the time to kind of expand their horizons in a way, and I get a little pushback because maybe they think they're going to be giving away money or something like that. And I was telling a story last week on our show that, you know, I brought in a guy into my home league last year that's been going since 2010. And it's full IDP, and it was his first year playing IDP, and he had the best record in the league. He finished with the top record in the league. First year he's done it. You know, what's your thoughts on people coming in or when you're trying to introduce more people to IDP?
So there's like a fine line between not wanting to overwhelm them, but also to make it worth their while. So, yeah. For example, so I have and everybody has their own personal opinions when it comes to how to play IDP. Mine in particular is if you're going to introduce IDP into your home league, then you have to introduce, more than just one IDP spot, because if you have one IDP spot, well, you still have a majority of your roster being offensive players. And you have really good performances from your offensive players and you have like a bad week from your IDP player. Well, that's okay because my offensive player is compensated for my IDP. But if you make it a more balanced playing field where you have some equal distribution of IDP players, IDP spots, as well as offensive spots, well, now the value is there. Now you've set precedent for why the value should be there for IDP, why you should be targeting them earlier, as well as the different, specific positions you're looking for depending on your IDP scoring. But I always tell people, to come back and answer your question, like, look, do you like watching football? Yeah, cool. You'll love IDP. Do you
exactly.
Do you like it when your favorite linebacker gets a hit, or your cornerback gets an interception, or your safety gets a hit, or your defensive edge rusher, whatever you name it, gets a sack? I mean, that's everybody forgets, and everybody remembers Cooper Kupp in the Super Bowl a couple years ago getting that game-winning touchdown.
Yep.
Everyone forgets Aaron Donald got the game-clinching sack to secure that title. So, if you like watching football, trust me, you can make IDP fun. You can make it non-intimidating. And with the great people here at Dynasty Pros, just a lot of great IDP content you all got here. Really impressive stuff you got going on here.
Yeah, I tend to agree exactly with you there, because when you're watching football, it's not like you get, okay, my offense is off the field. We just punted the ball. I'm going to get up and, go to the bat. I'm going to go and take a break until they get. You're watching defense. And there's nothing. I mean, you might want to watch defense just as much. You want to see one of your edge rushers get that sack or get a tackle for loss or an interception, and all of that stuff. So it's so exciting. So why not? Let's introduce that into fantasy football. And it's, if your guy gets a sack, that's kind of like one of your wide receivers getting a touchdown. Right. So it's so exciting to have that. And to, bring that into fantasy football, because it's just, it adds a whole other layer to fantasy, especially when it can get a little stale. I mean, let's not lie. Right. If you're in, 5, 6, 7 dynasty leagues where you got just all the same offensive players, you kind of get a little bored.
Sure.
All my favorite leagues include IDPs. That is hands down. And I've just started really getting more and more into Devi. That's a whole other ball game right there. But we'll save that. I've got a whole Devi team over at Dynasty Pros that talks about that. But that's a whole world there.
You want to know something interesting?
Yeah.
Up until 2019, I had never played in a fantasy football league where there wasn't IDP.
Mm-hmm.
What's up, Gator? So when somebody was like, "So we're gonna invite you to our league," I'm like, "Oh, well, thank you." And it's like, okay, running back, wide receiver, flex, kicker. I'm like, okay, DST. What's a DST?
Yeah.
It's like, where's my linebacker, defensive lineman, defensive back spots? IDP is where it's at, folks.
Oh, absolutely. It's just so much fun. It's great. We can promote it all day, all we want, but man, it's just so much fun. So listen, man, I absolutely love Fantasy and Frames. I love your team over there. And I'm not going to lie. I'm not just saying that just to, because you're a guest on the show, brother. You and I have talked on the side plenty. And I've told you almost every time how much I admire you guys and admire what you have going on over there. I want more people to see Fantasy and Frame. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how it got started, and tell us all about what you're doing over there.
Sure. So it got started back in 2017 after a year of nonstop talking to my wife about fantasy football. She got to the point where she was like, sweetheart, maybe there is another niche of people out there that would enjoy hearing this just a little bit more than I did. So I took the hint. I started a blog. I started a podcast. She came up with the name, actually. So after that, we were redraft IDP. It's like I said, IDP has always been a staple for me in fantasy football. And since then, we've grown from like a staff of like 2 to 3 to now, as of today, we have 22 people covering everything from redraft, IDP, Dynasty to DFS, best ball. And we're bringing on some gambling stuff also, some additional gambling stuff also heading into the season. So we got a lot of things going over at fantasyandframes.com. We're building up our YouTube channel. We're trying to take that next step into promoting more multimedia content, not just long form written content, which we're not getting rid of our written content. We're just adding to it because we understand that, this is the market, people's ways of absorbing content is shifting. So we want to shift along with the market there. But we just really have a really great time producing content. It's like a little family we have growing over here in the Fantasy and Frame circle. Nate Markham, who we met at the Expo last year. Yeah, he's a fantastic person. He's our director of IDP content at Fantasy and Frames. He's also finished in Fantasy Pros' top 10 ECR competition ranking for IDP the past 2 seasons. So he does a lot of great work for IDP. And under his leadership for that, we've just been, expanding. And, we love fantasy football, and we want to make sure that everybody out there appreciates, the fact that we love fantasy football and that we're there to help them have some fun.
Absolutely. If only you and I could find a way to include like wrestling and Marvel movies into fantasy.
Yes,
bro, you and I would be the same guy. Your thoughts are my thoughts. It cracks me up every time I see you tweet something on, and I'm just like, that exactly. Jorge, you punk, you stole my idea. I really, really just agree with so much of your stuff, dude. Me and you have way too much in common. It's a little scary. I'm not going to lie.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But, so anyways, like I said, everyone go check them out over at fantasyandframes.com. Great website. Lots of fantastic content. One of my favorite sites out there to follow. And go, like you said, you're trying to build up your following on YouTube. So if you guys haven't subscribed to them on YouTube, go find them right now and hit that subscribe button and give them a follow. It certainly helps. So, well, all right, man. Well, we got all this shameless plugging out of the way. And so let's actually talk about some of the stuff that we're here for, what we're actually doing, and talk some football and some fantasy football. And let's go over some of the latest news and some of the latest rumors going on right now, both with offense and defense. And I guess we can really start with, I guess the big blockbuster trade today with the Los Angeles Rams sending wide receiver Allen Robinson to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Basically for free. I mean, they swapped 7th round picks, and the Rams, I think, are paying 10 of the 15 million that he's owed this year. So, what's your thoughts on that deal?
I mean, the basic response I want to give is like, oh, veteran presence, veteran leadership. I don't think the Steelers are bringing in Allen Robinson to be the second coming of Antonio Brown in that Steelers offense. That's not happening. You drafted your future in George Pickens last year. You still have Deontay on the team. There's no Claypool there. Maybe he slides into the Claypool role. I don't know. This is actually a very puzzling transaction that they have here. And the fact that it came out of nowhere, I don't know about you, but I did not see any rumors or anything about Allen Robinson going to Pittsburgh of all places.
Not Pittsburgh, but just the fact that LA was just trying to get rid of him. He wanted out and they wanted rid of him. So it makes sense. And I think you're right. I think he slides into that Claypool type of an outside receiver. I actually think Pickens is going to be Pickens. I don't think it has any effect on him. Mm-hmm. He's going to be the big play guy. And a good red zone target. However, I think this kind of makes Deontay Johnson move more into the slot to where he might see quite a few more targets. I mean, Freiermuth's going to get a few, but I think this actually helps, the likes of Deontay Johnson because he was a huge letdown last year.
Yeah, no touchdowns on the season at all. Although you did see the targets starting to display there. The question I have here is this going to be too much for Kenny Pickett to handle going into year 2? You didn't see him really get a real full mastery of the offense last year. Obviously, he's a rookie. He's coming into a situation where he's unfamiliar with, and it takes a rookie time to adjust. Is surrounding him with all these weapons here now going to be a little bit too much for him, or is he going to rise to the occasion? I mean, that's ultimately going to be the question here, right? Whether or not the quarterback can do anything here. I think he does. I think he's able to utilize this. Do I trust Matt Canada to put all these places in place as the offensive coordinator for the Steelers to make this Steelers offense humming again? That is another question. I personally don't think so. But for fantasy purposes, though, I 100% agree with you that this is probably going to help Deontay more. He was more of in his most productive seasons, he was in the slot majority of the time. He got those targets from Big Ben. And the fact of the matter is, he's too talented for people to fade too much. But people are going to fade him. They're going to fade him because he didn't score a touchdown at all last year. And because of which, he could be a huge value for you now in your fantasy teams.
Absolutely. I think it'd be someone, if you're watching the show, someone to possibly target because I don't know if his value could be any lower right now than it is. So you could probably get him at a deal. And we certainly think that, he's going to progress this following season. If he scores one touchdown, that's
progress.
There you go. Absolutely. All right. So let's move on. Rumor has it that the Philadelphia Eagles gave Jalen Hurts $255 million.
That's the rumor.
Can you confirm? No. Yeah, man. They signed him to this huge deal. Great job locking him up. And how easy was that? Huh?
Yeah.
It wasn't an ongoing saga like this Lamar situation. I mean, he got 179 guaranteed. So, what's your thoughts on that contract?
Having an agent really helps out matters when it comes to, I don't know if you've heard about this, but there are these people out there called sports agents that negotiate deals for a living. This is what they trained for, that they go to school for, and they make it happen. And so I just find this utterly hilarious. What do I think of the deal? Great for Jalen Hurts. I am a huge Jalen Hurts fan. Some of you may not know, or maybe you do. During his post-game presser after the Super Bowl, this little kid was the last person to interview him and ask him a question. And the kid basically said, not really being aware of the magnitude of what he just went through, losing in the Super Bowl. But the little kid asked Jalen Hurts, what do you take away from losing? How do you adjust? How do you get over losing? Losing. What do you do to bounce back? And Jalen Hurts, instead of getting flustered and upset and getting into the emotion of having just lost a Super Bowl, just he thinks about it for a second and he answers this kid's question so eloquently and politely. And leaves everybody watching this with just a positive taste in their mouth of like, this is a quality human being. You want good things to happen for this person. And so for him to get this contract, for me, I'm like, yes, this is fantastic.
Now, agreed. I couldn't imagine them letting him walk. But I mean, a year ago, I mean, they were considering, like, hey, is this our quarterback?
Right. Now for Lamar, now that's the question. Now, like, what happens here? Does he realize he should have an agent? Does this make him dig his heels in more? I don't know. Let's be honest here. The issue here with Lamar is he wants Deshaun Watson money, which no team is going to pay Deshaun Watson money. And Cleveland was just off their rocker giving him all that money to begin with. And I hate to say it, I get it. He was an MVP. What was it, 2019 when he was an MVP?
Yeah.
Has he played a full season since then? I mean, the last
Barely.
He has.
Yeah. It's been rough.
Injuries have taken their toll. No more Greg Roman. That's the next factor here. Now that's something to pay attention to. If Lamar does come back under the franchise tag and plays, will this improve his longevity? Will he be able to stay on the field more? Because I think he comes back, he plays the 1 year on the franchise tag, and if he's able to play a full slate this season and again to the playoffs, well, now you're saying, okay, well, now the issues of me being injury prone or whatnot are out the window because we have this new philosophy and offense in Baltimore. I can stay protected. We can utilize me as a passer, which he can do very well. Now Baltimore is in a position where they're like, well, wow, now we really got to pay this guy the money, which is then great for Lamar. If it turns into a situation where he's holding out or he's not going out there to do anything, like, this is only going to go downhill really quickly.
Yeah, it's not going to be good for him. I mean, he's the only way he can improve his stock is exactly what you said. If he plays on this 1 year, on this franchise tag, goes out there and plays a full healthy season in this new offense by Todd Monken and lights it up, then we can talk again this time next year and see if we can lock you up and maybe you can earn yourself some more money. But right now, you're talking about a guy that hasn't finished a season in 3 years. That's got one playoff victory, and he's winning all of 230 plus guaranteed, where a guy that just took a team to the Super Bowl, damn near won the Super Bowl, just got 179, almost 180 guaranteed. I loved the contract for Jalen Hurts because everyone knows I'm a big Baltimore fan, and I would like to see Lamar stay there. I really, really would. And I think that this deal, it kind of makes him eat crow a little bit. And the fact that, Schefter and Rappaport and these guys are reporting that the Ravens actually offered him $200 million guaranteed. Really about the same contract as Jalen got. However, they offered him $200 guaranteed where Jalen got 179, 180. Just makes you think, like, do I just take that money and run? Do I get it now? But this is not good for Lamar. This contract knocks him down a peg or two. So
I agree.
He can't really, you can't really say like, hey, I've done this or I've done, bro, this guy really has done more than you. Now he's got weapons, but who knows, man, that thing needs to come to an end. Either he needs to sign that franchise tag, play another season and try and build and get paid again this time next year, or just, they need to lock him up to a, 4 or 5 year deal. So right. That's really, I could go in all day about Lamar, and I'm sure people are absolutely sick of hearing it because I am. So let's move on from that. So talking about Adam Schefter just a moment ago, been seeing and reading that according to him, that there's speculation that the Houston Texans might not go QB with the second pick overall. And then in fact, they're actually entertaining offers. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? What are your thoughts there?
I don't buy it for 1 second. I seriously, I don't buy it for 1 second. When free agency started, it was, and I still am a huge fan of what the Texans have been doing on offense, bringing back two key pieces, of their offensive line. You bring in Devin Singletary, so now you got the 1-2 punch at running back. You bring in Robert Woods, who, yes, people could say he's washed. I call it veteran presence in the wide receiver room. You bring in Dalton Schultz, a tight end, who's the best friend of a quarterback. You solidify all these offensive pieces around here for Houston. And all you need to do is just put in the quarterback who has, the playmakers around him, and just let him give him the ball. Let him do the work for him.
Yeah.
It's versus putting a rookie quarterback in a situation where he is all there is and he's bound to fall on his face. I think Houston's done a great job making the perfect landing spot for a rookie quarterback. And the fact that they're Schefter's saying that they're going to be entertaining offers, like, yes, I guess you're doing your due diligence. And if you get like multiple picks, then I understand it.
Yep.
If I'm Houston, like, you're not going to be in a better spot to have a nurturing environment for a rookie quarterback than you have right now. So why not just pull the trigger on that?
I couldn't agree more. You just kind of took the words right out of my mouth. I don't buy it for 1 second either. I mean, you have a franchise quarterback sitting in your lap. Either it's Bryce Young or it's CJ Stroud. You have your option to have one of those guys. As of right now, it looks like it's going to be Stroud. Davis Mills is not the guy. Okay. I hate to break the news to you, but he's not the guy. So you've got your franchise QB there. That's what you need. Anybody that's picking normally at the top of the draft has QB issues, and they're no exception. So, yeah, I mean, they can entertain offers all day if somebody blows them away because they want to move up and grab, say, CJ Stroud or something like that. I mean, yeah, you want to say that it's available. I mean, in fantasy football, brother, in my dynasty leagues, I tell everyone, hey, every player on my team is available. I mean, you got to pay the price, but they're available.
Right.
If you want them. So, I think they're just doing what they should. That's just kind of like coach speak for a GM. I don't buy it for a second. In fact, in my new, I guess I'll be releasing my personal mock draft here in the next couple of days. I mean, I have him going number 2. It's no doubt, and then they come back around at pick 12. I mean, what better pick than Jackson Smith and Jigba? I mean, come on now.
Right.
I mean, his favorite target from college. I mean, it's just, I even put it in the article. It's a match made in heaven. Don't, Houston, don't jack this up. Don't screw it up. Don't get too pretty. Don't. So, yeah. Don't get in your own way there, guys. So, well, all right. So speaking of the, possibly trading picks, I mean, obviously Arizona has been shopping that number 3 pick. And in fact, I just can't see them keeping it. I think they'd be silly to keep that pick. So they're going to trade it. And a lot of rumors, and in my latest mock, I have the Tennessee Titans moving all the way up from, I think, pick 11 to select Anthony Richardson. Give me your thoughts on Richardson and what you think of him, and and then kind of to piggyback off of that, do you think maybe the Titans would be a good fit for him?
What more does he have to do to show that he can potentially be an elite prospect, elite quarterback at this level? You saw his performance in college last year, and then everybody was saying, oh, well, maybe there's this, maybe there's that, maybe he can't do this, maybe he can't do that. Well, I guess the combine will tell us. And I think people were saying that who were saying maybe the combine would tell us that we're looking at the combine as an opportunity to kind of like prove themselves right, in the sense of like, we knew he couldn't do it. And what did he do? He blew the combine off the doors. Like, it was like his performance was fantastic. Look, he is definitely a first round selection at the quarterback position. What do I think of Tennessee trading up and getting him? They better. Malik Willis is not the answer. As good as a interesting story as that was last year, Ryan Tannehill is not your long-term answer. And let's face it, if you're an organization, and let's just put real football talk on the back burner for a second. If you're an organization trying to fill your stadium with fill those seats up in your stadium, you better have something and somebody exciting to get them going, to want to come up to your football games and to cheer on your team. And what better than one of the best college prospect quarterbacks in this class? It makes too much sense for Tennessee if they're in that position to draft Anthony Richardson. You have Treylon Burks there. You have Derrick Henry still there. Whether they address the running back position for the future is something we could talk about at a later time, which I think they should. That's just me.
Absolutely.
But you have some holes on the offensive line. You tight end appears to be solid. But you need that name value. You need that name value. You need that explosive playmaker that Richardson is, and who can compensate for a lot of deficiencies that your team on offense has, specifically along that offensive line. So his mobility, his playmaking, his touch, his arm. I mean, whatever thing you want to give him praise for, this guy could do a lot of good, especially going to a team like the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, and Tennessee's played Baltimore enough and have gotten burned up by Lamar Jackson. So I think just the thought of having that type of player on their team, hence the reason why I believe they went and got Malik Willis, which was a bad move. Malik Willis is not Anthony Richardson. I think Richardson probably needs to sit, and I'd sit him for possibly a season, as hard as that may be, especially for that fan base, if Tannehill's stinking it up or if they even dare put Malik Willis in there to play. So, but yeah, he is a prospect. I think he needs some time. Actually, he does need time. Yeah, he's not a day one starter. So just my fear is a team picking high in the draft, rushing him out there and making that mistake and just shattering their, his confidence. We don't want that. And so it would be very, very interesting to see that. And in fact, if the Colts then take Will Levis at 4, that's an NFL like record. It's NFL history. There's never been a quarterback going 1, 2, 3, 4 to start a draft. So that would be pretty cool. The first time that's ever happened. So yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not a big Titans guy. I do live in Tennessee. I don't know, but I completely agree with you. They've got an old quarterback and an old running back. They need some young blood in there to, they need a future. And right now they don't have that. So right. Yeah, I completely agree. A young quarterback would be very, very wise for them to take. So let's move on to the New York Giants, man. Last week, this is kind of a little old news, but I wanted to touch on it for for a minute or two. What's your thoughts on the Saquon Barkley situation? He wants a long-term contract. Apparently, New York has no interest in signing him long-term. Looks like they want to maybe franchise him. Obviously, they did this year, possibly. Maybe it was in the books to franchise him again one more time next year and then letting him walk. He has no interest in that. And as a whole, it's not going to voluntary workouts. Do you think that he would be a holdout? Because I personally do. I don't think he shows up. And I could see some trades going down at the draft, and a Saquon Barkley trade at the draft wouldn't surprise me.
That's a good one. When I saw this happen and I saw that he wasn't going to be reporting to the team activities, my initial thought was this is going to be resolved probably before July. I see this. I understand he wants a long-term deal. I see this happening where it's more of like, instead of like a 5-year deal or a 4-year deal, it's more of a 3-year deal with more guaranteed money and more annual millions per game. Whatever, insert monetary amounts. Yeah. I think they get this thing solved. I don't think Saquon, as much as they want this solved, the Giants want this solved. The Giants are going to be the Giants. They're always very conservative when they talk about player negotiations. They don't really show their hand a lot when they do this process. The Giants just are matter of fact, get to their business, handle it behind the scenes. And I think they're doing that. I think they're going to do that with Saquon Barkley. I would be shocked if they trade him, because what are you really getting in trade value? As much as running back has been depreciated over the past few seasons, or I should say several seasons when we really think about it, what compensation could you possibly be expecting back for Saquon Barkley? What running back in the 3rd or 4th round of this year's NFL draft could be Saquon Barkley? And if the answer is none of them, you're not getting rid of Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, you probably get a 3rd, 4th rounder for him. So, it doesn't make any sense to move him. But hey, if he's not going to sign and they have no interest I mean, locking him up,
You got to move on, right?
Yeah, they've got to do something. They got to get something for him. So, we've seen stranger things happen, and there's not a team out there. I don't care who they have. Everyone would like to have Saquon Barkley. So
Sure.
I think he would have some kind of a market. The only problem is if you're trading for him, you've got to sign him to a long-term deal. And I completely agree with you. It can't be a 5-year deal. Name a running back that's been locked up, given that big contract that has paid off. I mean, Zeke's gone. The Titans are trying desperately to get rid of Derrick Henry and try and move off of him. Any of these running backs who have signed these big deals, they've ended up getting cut. I mean, it's just not been a smart move for any franchise. I think about the only one that's really still kind of there. The exception might be McCaffrey. So other than that, everyone else, it's been a pretty big mistake. And I think that, that they're just playing it smart, but I don't think it's not going to be good for Saquon. So anyway. Well, all right. Well, that takes care of some of our offensive stuff. So let's talk a little bit of IDP news and rumors here. A few days back, the Falcons acquired Jeffrey Okudah from the Detroit Lions in exchange for a 5th-round pick. That was very, very surprising because, Okudah is a pretty solid player. I don't know if it's contract related, what it is, but that really, really caught us off guard. I mean, because Detroit already kind of needed a cornerback, and now they just traded their best one. What's your thoughts on Okudah first of all, going to the Falcons, and then second of all, how do you think this might affect Detroit's plans in the draft?
So let's flash backwards to when he was drafted. I think when it was like 4 overall by Detroit back in the day.
Yep.
Coming out of college, he had some type of like abdominal injury surgery. So he was heading into his rookie year already kind of like dealing with that, recuperating from that while still trying to get into shape to be, this awesome shutdown corner of a player that he was at Ohio State. And was he that? Some will say yes, some will say no. Okay, you go forward a couple years. He has a really bad game, week 1, I think it is. I think it was week 1, and I remember this specifically because they showed the defensive coordinator on the sideline ripping into him. Then after the game, you find out he tore his Achilles, and it's like, oh, that's just a bad look, right? He comes back, and last year down the stretch, he gets replaced by insert person's name that I can't remember, who they didn't even bring back this year. And so it's kind of like what you were hoping to get as far as like this awesome lockdown cornerback, just at the number 4 overall pick, it just never really turned into fruition. Where he excelled is in run defense. He was a great helping out in run D. But as far as like wanting to get that premier shutdown corner, I don't think he ever lived up to that billing. And so him being traded to the Falcons, what was it, for like a 5th round or a 7th round pick, something along those lines?
5th rounder.
5th round pick.
Yeah.
That burns, right? So now he goes to Atlanta. He'll probably be playing opposite AJ Terrell. I don't know. The Falcons with Okudah and then with somebody else that we'll get into a little bit later have made a couple of recent signings that are kind of making me scratch my head. But I'm foreshadowing here. For Detroit now, this is, you bring in Mosley, you bring in Sutton, you sign Harris as a depth piece. You have CJ Gardner-Johnson you bring in the secondary. This secondary, when they started to bring in all these pieces at defensive back, I'm like, okay, well, somebody's going to have to be the odd man out here. And it's I'm not trying to say it's Jeff Okudah, but then flash forward a few months and it's Jeff Okudah, right? Mm-hmm. For me, I'm looking at Detroit. I'm like, okay, well, you're taking care of the back end. That was your Achilles heel, no pun intended, talking about Jeff Okudah last year. Now you bring in Aiden Hutchinson last year, who played phenomenally as a rookie. Do you go and get another edge rusher? at number 6 this year? Do you go and try and take both sides of the ball and really help solidify, from front to back, everything on your defense? I'm curious about that. They've addressed a lot of pieces on offense. I guess the other option is they could be looking at quarterback, to be honest with you, if there is somebody that is tickling their fancy there. But I think they stick with the defensive side of the ball. Campbell is, tough, bite your kneecap kind of guy. He wants to get his defense, chomping on all 4 cylinders. Yeah, that analogy makes so much for it. You get what I'm saying. I think that they address the defensive edge side of the ball for the Lions here. But I think it sucks that the experiment didn't pan out for what you drafted him as. Good luck in Atlanta. But I think Detroit is on their way to doing something really special defensively.
Yeah, and in fact, in my mock that's coming out, I have Detroit at 6, I believe. I have them taking Will Anderson Jr. I actually have him slip past Seattle. I have Seattle taking Tyree Wilson ahead of him. So maybe probably let's just say it was my second, maybe shocker of my mock. And then, Detroit has that 18th pick where it seems there's a lot of mock drafts out there that love putting Bijan there.
Yeah.
Love it. I didn't put him there in my mock. And in fact, I have them taking Dalton Kincaid. And then they lost Hawkinson.
Right.
That tends to be a little bit of a luxury pick. And before the top 4 corners are gone by that 18th pick in my mock. So they take the best pass catching, tight end in the draft and replace what, that hole that's been left behind, that void left behind by the departed, TJ Hawkinson. So a little bit behind the curtains there, let you know about the mock. But I think Will Anderson, Aiden Hutchinson, bro.
Makes too much sense almost. And I love that move you have there, that we have him slipping, going further down in the draft, because I 100% agree that could definitely be something that would happen on draft night.
I could be wrong. I mean, listen, he's a stud, and I've had this discussion with a handful of people that IDP guys around. I think Tyree Wilson's a little bit better all-around football player than Will Anderson. Will Anderson to me is kind of like I was saying, I think it was Master IDP had a tweet the other day, and he was like, describe him, what's a player comp? And to me, he was Dwight Freeney. He's Von Miller. He's that edge type of specialist, a pass rushing specialist, where I think Tyree Wilson is a more solid edge guy. He's going to get to the quarterback. He's going to put that pressure on him, but he absolutely is fantastic against the run game. He's a tackle for loss machine. And I think that makes a lot more sense. Personally, it would be hard for me to pass him up if he was available to me. I just like him a little bit better as an all-around player than Will Anderson. That's the reason why I kind of made that pick. So I don't know. I guess we'll find out here in about a week and a half, won't we?
Pretty much, right?
Absolutely.
So close. We're so close, man. It's so close.
Oh, I can't wait. So speaking of the Falcons, they also made another move, and they signed Bud Dupree to a 1-year deal. They didn't give him a whole lot of money, but, he's shown that he can get to the quarterback in the past. It looks like he's probably signed a 1-year contract, maybe to show that he can still play. He's been a little injury prone last couple of seasons. So, this is one of those, like, let me show you what I can do, and I'm going to get plenty of opportunity here in Atlanta, and maybe I can get that one last, maybe 2 or 3 year deal. What's your thoughts on that signing there in Atlanta?
Okay, so what you just said is exactly what he said in an interview, which is fantastic.
Really?
Wow. Yeah, no, it is hilarious. No, but that's perfect. You nailed it right on the head. And it's like your clairvoyance. It's like you already knew, and it makes sense, right? Like, he's had, decreasing production the past few seasons. Rumor has it that it was basically coming down to Atlanta or Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh wanted a 2-year deal. And Atlanta was just going to give him the 1, and he wanted to basically do a one and done, build up his his stock there, and cash in next season. And that's what Atlanta was doing. And Atlanta, for one of the players I'll be talking about later, it makes me scratch my head a little bit why they brought in Dupree. And I'll tease that for a little bit later, but it is an interesting signing. Obviously, pass rusher is a need. I thought when they drafted the Falcons, that is Arnold Ebiketie last year, that Ebiketie would be somebody that towards the end of the season would start to show some signs of just utter, to quote John Cena, ruthless aggression. There's your WWE quote for the night there, Bob. But it just didn't pan out, and so they've made some moves here where they in the offseason that it could be used to address the edge rusher position. So yeah, Dupree, he's an interesting signing for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt, I mean, edge rushers are hard to come by, and he's shown to be a pretty productive one in the past as long as he's on the field. So I think this was a win-win for both. If he can stay on the field, maybe he can cash in, like I said, a year from now. If he's on the field, then Atlanta's getting a hell of a lot more than their money's worth, with
sure.
Well, all right. Well, let's talk about Budda Baker. Man, what in the world is going on here? Pay me, make me the highest paid safety, or trade me. What does Arizona do here, man? I mean, they have to pay him, right?
Do they?
I mean, do they?
I don't know. I don't know if they have to. I want to say it's now 2 seasons in a row he's dealt with injuries that have helped. I don't want to say I guess they're technically season-ending injuries, but they weren't like catastrophic injuries. But you've seen the injury bug kind of get him late down the stretch towards the season, the past 2 seasons. Whether it's a concussion, it was like a brutal concussion 2 years ago, and I forget what it was this year that may have hampered his production/availability. But this is what's going on in Arizona is kind of disturbing. You bring in this new head coach from the Philadelphia Eagles. You're trying to revamp everything. A year ago, we're talking about Kyler Murray's contract having a no play Call of Duty clause into it. You're questioning your quarterback's, dedication to his craft on the field. You have your now current wide receiver 1, DeAndre Hopkins, looking to be cut or shopped, and you have your team owner in the middle of some contract. Like, there's just all sorts of craziness going on in the desert.
Yeah, they are a little bit of a dumpster fire right now.
It's very Washington Commanders-esque. Speaking as a Washington Commanders fan, I can sympathize with the fan base there in Arizona currently. Anyhow, to get back to your question, Budda Baker, they need to pay him. I don't think they need to pay him. And if they let him go, then they'll address that in the draft. I don't think he's somebody who is warranted of getting top money. Like, look, with all due respect, he's not Derwin James. I'll just throw that out there. I love Budda Baker, but you've seen his productivity and usage shift, with the onset of Jalen Thompson in the past few seasons. People will say, well, it's an anomaly. It's only happened for 1 season. Well, no, Jalen Thompson's been pretty good for 2 seasons now. How many seasons are we going to have to see this before we start to say, hey, guess what? Jalen Thompson is a pretty damn good safety in the NFL as well as for fantasy. So Budda Baker, I don't think he gets that money. I think this is all smoke. I think this is all drama. If anything, I see him getting traded more so than I do see him getting re-signed by Arizona. What are your thoughts?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I don't think he's a solid player, but some of the injuries have kind of taken a toll on him. I just don't think bottom line, I don't think he's worth that kind of money. If he wants to be the highest paid safety in the league, man, go somewhere else and do it. We'll be glad to grab get a 2nd round pick out of you, maybe even a 1st. So yeah, don't play chicken with me if I'm running that team.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I don't like squeaky wheels. And if you don't want to be here, then I'll be more than happy to accommodate that. Have a good day. So,
exactly.
Yep. All right. So speaking of wanting to trade, I know this one's kind of a last week thing, but I didn't get to talk about it. Devin White out of Tampa has asked for a trade, but the Buccaneers have zero interest in moving him. Where do we think this goes? Do you think he's trying to get paid, or does he see this kind of sinking ship that he doesn't want to waste his prime years on a team that's going nowhere?
See, now this is a situation where I see Tampa Bay paying him,
shutting him up. Here you go.
I really do. I don't look, go down with the ching. Like, woe is me. I'm Devin White. I just got a Super Bowl ring a couple years ago. My life is so horrible. Like, no, like they have some pieces they need to adjust in Tampa Bay. Absolutely. Do I think they're as bad as a lot of other people think they're at? No, I don't. I think they're a quarterback away from, having, not the level you were having with Tom Brady at its apex, but I think you're at a point where you're at least competitive in that division.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a strong division there, Bob. I mean, it's not going to take too much for, things to kind of turn them around. Granted, I'm not saying Baker Mayfield's the answer. But I think the core of this Tampa Bay team, regardless of coaching regime, has always been the defense. Defense from the days of Warren Sapp and Rondé Barber and John Lynch to now. I mean, the Buccaneers defense has been something that people will always respect. And I think that would be a huge mismanagement of, player personnel if they were to trade Devin White or get rid of him or not pay him what I think he's due, what he's earned.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there. Especially seeing, you can just take a look at Chicago and see them trade Roquan. And Roquan, once he gets settled in Baltimore, just lights it up as he does, gets a great contract. But then you see that Chicago has to go and sign, Tremaine Edmonds to literally the highest contract or, per year of any linebacker in history. But yet you didn't want to pay Roquan. This doesn't make sense. So Tampa would be very, very wise to not. This guy's special. I mean, heck, and what was it? 2 seasons ago, he was our number one. Basically our number one linebacker in Dynasty. In IDP leagues, our Dynasty leagues, and I think the year before, Shaq Barrett, which we will talk about here in a little bit. But Devin White's a stud, and that's not a guy. We talked about Budda Baker, like, hey man, take care, see you later. We'll help you out. We'll drive you to the airport. However, I'm not letting Devin White leave the building. Let's pay this guy. Let's make him happy. He is going to be the face of our defense. Let's make the man happy. So I'm right there with you, 100%. They can't let him go unless they just get just blown away with an offer there. So, speaking of someone that's wanting to get paid and possibly could hold out, Jets defensive tackle Quinnen Williams, heck of a player there. He's not reported to voluntary offseason program as he's seeking a new contract in that $23 to $25 million per year range. He worth that?
Pay the man. Absolutely. Did you not? I mean, we all saw how just dominant he was at interior defensive tackle last year. This guy is, he's right up there with the Donalds. Yes, I'm saying it. He's right up there with the Aaron Donalds, the Christian Wilkins, the DeForest Buckners, the Hargraves. I mean, Williams is one of the most disruptive presence in the interior of a defensive line that you're going to find out there. He's somebody who, for my dynasty rankings, I have him in my top 12, which is, again, rare because, having a defensive tackle in most fantasy leagues doesn't really equate to a lot of fantasy production. That just goes to show you how important and how dominant he was for real football as well as subsequently for fantasy. So yeah, if I'm the Jets, I'm like, look, I know we're talking about Aaron Rodgers here, but if Aaron Rodgers doesn't show up, well, we need something to help us be competitive. And so by not re-upping Quinnen Williams, you're doing your organization a huge disservice. Like just lock him up, lock up that defensive line position, defensive line spot, and be on your way.
Yeah, he's a heck of a player. He's been very, very durable. it's kind of weird seeing people making that much money on defense, but you're right. If anyone's worth it, I mean, defensive players are getting paid this now.
Right.
So there's not many of them out there. I mean, this is your guy who has exceeded expectations. Pay him, pay the man. Instead of going and fiddling around, screwing around, signing receivers that you have no need for just to make A-Rod happy. You need to lock up this guy. You don't want this guy getting upset. You don't want him requesting a trade next. You need to make this right. Just like the Devin White situation. This is the face of your defense. Don't screw it up.
Well, it makes you wonder whether the moves they've made so far to get Aaron Rodgers happy, has that screwed them out of this potential deal? I don't know what their salary cap situation is, but
Rodgers makes so much. I mean, he makes like, what does he make? Over $50 million a year?
That's pretty,
And they didn't need receivers, and they go sign. God, what was it? What was the wide receiver out of Green Bay that they brought in? Alan Lazard. In my opinion, I thought was a very stupid contract. They didn't need him. Then they let Braxton Berrios walk because of, Rodgers apparently wants to bring Randall Cobb with him. Bro, I mean, dude, like, I get that, you've struck out a few times with your draft picks and all this stuff, but golly, I mean, Rodgers is such a pain in the butt. I'm sick of the man. I'm ready for him to move on, and you don't want to lose your stud defensive player at the expense of bringing in a Rodgers who's probably only going to be there a year anyways. So
exactly,
whatever. We were talking about the Buccaneers a little bit ago with Devin White. Segue, Shaq Barrett, their stud edge rusher, kind of blew out his Achilles last year, which really, really sucked. But it says he's on track to start week 1 of the regular season. So I think that's a pretty nice sign. He's always been a productive player in fantasy in IDP leagues. So I know he's not getting any younger, but I still think he'd be a sneaky little pick. I mean, his value has dropped quite substantially. So I think he'd be a sneaky little edge rusher you can grab, kind of like a Hassan Reddick was, a couple of years ago. I think he'd be someone to grab. Other than that, maybe Tampa trades him to get a little younger. This is one of the few pieces that they probably could trade and get something out of. It may be mid-season, but they can't trade the receivers because of the money, their contracts. This might be someone that they could trade. I've got them taking an edge rusher in my mock draft, and I would think that could give them the opportunity and maybe moving this guy and getting a little bit of draft capital for him. Do you think that would be a good idea? And what's your thoughts on him coming back? I mean, I think he could be a nice little sneaky little pickup, in your IDP leagues, especially if he's maybe on a waiver wire,
Well, especially for a player coming off of an Achilles who says that they're going to be ready week 1, not June, not July, not August, but week 1, which tells me, okay, well, there's going to be an adjustment period before he's back up to full speed, if he gets back up to full speed. So what does that mean? That means his value is going to go down, in which case you can get him at a value and just kind of like hold him on your bench until it's time for, it's time to throw him back in there because he's firing on all cylinders. As far as far as trading him goes, I mean, it's all about, what you can get and whether or not you think whatever you're getting has the potential to be better than what you already have. I'm actually very curious to see your mock now. We've referenced it a few times, like a bunch of times on the show, and I need to sweet talk you after the show and be like, hey, what's your mock there? Because I would be very curious to see who goes there and who you would insert there. I mean, if I don't know if you could, sure. Something tells me though, Jason liked whatever his pronunciation of his last name is, the general manager for the Buccaneers. Mm-hmm. He has had 100% confidence in Shaq Barrett since he brought him over. Whether it was giving him first the opportunity on the 1-year deal, and then he locked him up to like a 4-year, $36 million deal, something along those lines. He's had a lot of great seasons in Tampa Bay. I don't know whether or not he's ready, the GM that is ready to just say goodbye after just an injury season that was wasted. So I don't know. I don't know to answer your question about that. What do I think? I think though for fantasy though, he's definitely going to be a value for you in your drafts come August.
Yeah, and I agree. I think maybe he may not be at full speed week one. I think maybe if he is traded, it's kind of one of those trade deadline deals. But talk about that mock. I have them taking Nolan Smith out of Georgia. So
ooh, look at you. That's good. That's a good one. All right.
Yeah, that's who I've got. I'm going with there. Well, all right. So we've kind of knocked out some of the news and rumors there. Let's get into some of our favorite targets. Let's just say, or some of our favorite IDP targets that we're maybe trying to pick up via trade, or if we're in a startup, maybe picking them up, in the draft. Who's some guys to you that you really, really like that maybe hopefully some of your guys in your league aren't watching the show right now, so we don't want them to know what the plan is, but name a couple of guys. Let's start off. Who's someone that sticks out to you that you've been targeting, you're trying to get your hands on at a good deal.
So I'm glad you said that first part, because truth be told, these are guys I went out and I found on my waiver wire in a bunch of my IDP Dynasty leagues. And I'm like, add, yes, now, give me now. So I'm already ahead of the curve of being able to say these players' names. I don't care. Yeah, thank you. So let's start with the first one, defensive lineman Agbanya Okoronkwo, now of the Cleveland Browns, or as Nate Markham at Fantasy and Frames dubbed him last year, OGOK. I think that's a pretty neat and simple.
It makes a lot of sense. A heck of a lot easier to say.
Exactly. OGOK. That's for you, Nate. Last year, when he finally started seeing the bulk of his opportunities in week 13 and on, he was the defensive lineman 13 in total pressures with a pressure rate of 19.7%, which is right up there with elite pass rushers such as Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa, and it was even higher than his now teammate, Myles Garrett. And we're talking about fantasy production using Fantasy Pro scoring, which, again, we all have our different IDP scoring settings, and that merit to all of them. Sure. Fantasy Pros, theirs is a very basic scoring. I guess that's the best way to put it. Even with a basic scoring setting, he still was averaging 11.3 points per game, which is good for DL2 numbers. So you put him in a league where scoring setting rewards big plays or is a bit more balanced or whatnot, that's only going to increase his value. He now finds himself in Cleveland opposite Myles Garrett. You have Dalvin Tomlinson in the middle of that defensive line, soaking up all those blocks in the middle. That's only going to help him in one-on-one pass rushing situations, which, again, down the stretch last season, finished as the edge rusher 5 in overall win percentage. We think about the Cleveland Browns defensive line, and for years it was Myles Garrett rushing the passer on one side and Jadeveon Clowney going after the run on the other side. Well, now you're saying what Cleveland is now committed to. They want to get after the quarterbacks in their division. They want to get after the quarterbacks in this league. And Myles Garrett, is as elite as it gets, and he's going to command that double team more often than not. Tomlinson is a mammoth of a human being. He's going to demand that double team. Somebody's going to have to be the primary beneficiary of those one-on-one opportunities. And like I said, edge rusher 5 in terms of win rate last year, OGOK is okay with me.
Nice. He has been, around the IDP community, we kind of want to consider him a sleeper, but unfortunately, I don't know if I would call him much of a sleeper anymore because a lot of people like this guy. OG is definitely climbing up the boards there. So luckily, I've gotten my hands on him in almost every IDP league I'm in, sitting on the waiver wire, free money. Who else? What's another guy that sticks out to you?
So I was alluding to this a little bit earlier with Atlanta when we were talking about Bud Dupree. But when this signing happened in free agency, I loved it. I thought it was very smart. And for fantasy purposes, I couldn't have enough of it. Caden Ellis, the linebacker, formerly now of the New Orleans Saints, last year from weeks 9 through 17, which is right around the time that Pete Werner went out due to injury for the Saints. You saw Caden Ellis step in And during those 8 games, he just went ballistic. 4.5 sacks with a 21.8% pressure rate. Folks, some of the best edge rushers in the NFL don't get up to a 21.8% pressure rate. He had 6 TFLs, tackles for a loss, 63 total tackles in run support, 17.2% tackle rate against the run. Just phenomenal elite numbers. Was averaging, again, using as the barometer, the baseline basic scoring for fantasy pros, 15.1 points per game.
Well, thanks, by the way. Sorry to cut you off. I just get a notification on my phone in one of my IDP leagues on Sleeper. Somebody just picked up Caden Ellis just now. Oh, that's funny.
Congratulations to your teammate. I am sorry for you, Bob, that I didn't.
My phone goes off. I hear and I go over there and look, and yep. I was like, somebody didn't just go grab? I was thinking somebody didn't just go grab OG or something in a league where I forgot him. And nope, Caden Ellis, thanks. But go ahead, as you were, sir.
Thank you. No, but what makes him so impressive is he had his first outing as the starter opposite Demario Davis, and he went tackle crazy, which is great. And then I looked back that I was like, okay, well, let me keep track of this player as the season keeps going on. And then you look at the next week, I'm looking at the tackle numbers. I'm like, tackle numbers aren't really that impressive. But no, but he was getting to the quarterback and getting you quarterback hits, getting you sacks. And I was like, oh, wow, this guy is doing everything. He's basically like a Swiss Army knife at linebacker. Mm-hmm. And I want to say on Sleeper for a good chunk of time, he was dual eligible as a defensive lineman and as a linebacker, which is something I'll get into in a little bit. But anyhow, so now he finds his way to Atlanta, where you have second-year linebacker Troy Anderson kind of towards the end of last season, asserting himself as a starting linebacker, taking snaps away from Michael Walker, even though Michael Walker did post his first 100 tackle season of his 3-year career. That being the case, given Ellis's versatility, both playing off-ball linebacker or playing on the edge, getting to the quarterback, it makes too much sense to not have Caden Ellis on the field at all times. Now, let's address the bud in the room and Bud Dupree. We talked about it earlier. Hasn't played a full season since 2019. His tackle volume has been decreasing every year. His sack numbers have gone down. I understand that he and many people are seeing this as a one and done situation. You could very well see Walker, Anderson, your 2 linebackers. You could potentially see them adopting a 3-4 scheme here, where you have your 2 edge rushers and Ellis and Bud Dupree. You have your inside guys with Walker and Anderson, because they're not bringing back Rashad Evans at this point, I don't believe. And really maximizing all 4 of those players' skill sets. That being the case, Caden Ellis, folks, this guy's good. This guy's really good. And again, for fantasy now, if he gets that dual eligibility, if the snaps do show that he is lining up more at edge and he is able to be inserted into your defensive line spot, he is a must insert every single week.
Let me check. Let me look on the old Sleeper here.
He's not. I checked.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So I know, right? It sucks. But that could change. And that has definitely, Sleeper, for all the great things that they do on that platform, when it comes to IDP, they need to do a little bit more work. Sleeper HQ, if you're listening. That being the case, even if you
rookies.
Let's get rookies in there. Let's get some IDP rookies. Let's start with that, and then work our way up, right?
Let's just start there. And they're saying they're not going to do it until after the draft. Okay, whatever.
It's don't even get me started. But even if he just was in that linebacker only role, in terms of position designation on Sleeper, if you're playing in a league with 2 linebackers and an IDP flex or 3 linebackers deep, he's going to put up enough production some way, somehow on the field to be your joker, to be your wild card, that you're going to have him as your flex, who could potentially, or your LB3, who at the minimum could give you mid LB2 numbers. Towards the end of last season, he was finishing as a top 15 linebacker in points per game scoring using Fantasy Pro scoring settings. And here's the kicker. New Orleans, much like many defenses nowadays, are running the 5-2, where you got your 2 linebackers on the field and your 5 defensive backs. They were so impressed with Caden Ellis that when Pete Werner came back, they didn't put Ellis back on the bench. No, they rolled out 3 linebackers. They're like, we're keeping you on the field, buddy. Like, we'll adjust our scheme to maximize all of our player strengths. That tells you something. That just goes to tell you something right there. And kudos for Ellis for getting the money and going to Atlanta and getting the clear path to snaps there, I believe, when it comes at the linebacker.
Yeah, and Rashaan Evans played very, very well for Atlanta, filling in for, Deion Jones and everything there. That was a guy that was a very, very solid IDP play for the last season. And the fact that he's still not landed on a team absolutely blows my mind. I think his agent has really mishandled the situation there. I think he was hoping to get a big payday, and bro, the train's leaving the station. He needs to go find a new home somewhere, because I don't know if I think he's asking for a little too much.
Right.
And he was so productive, but this signing absolutely was the writing on the wall that he's probably not returning. So yeah, great one there. I'm going to have to go and look around and see if he's available in any leagues. Speaking of kind of this linebacker thing, Zaire Franklin is one of my guys. In our scoring system over at Dynasty Pros, I know we were talking about Fantasy Pros, but Dynasty Pros, you get rewarded nicely for your sacks and tackles for loss, and especially obviously you're going to get your rewards for tackles. He was a top 5 linebacker for us last year. And I don't see that changing. He's a tackle machine. And with the durability issues over the last 2 seasons with Shaq Leonard, saying everything's on track for Shaquille Leonard to be ready this year, but how long does that last? We've heard this for going on. This is like the 3rd year we're having to, we've dealt with it for the last 2 years. So I'm not holding my breath when it comes to Shaq Leonard. I think that Zaire Franklin is their guy, and he's not getting enough recognition in the IDP world. I don't know if people think it was just a one year wonder, but not me. I think he is a phenomenal. I don't think he's I think he's a fantastic IDP asset, and someone I have certainly targeted in so many leagues, because I think I can get him for a lot cheaper than what he really should be worth. What's your thoughts there with Franklin?
For fantasy, there is no way I can put any trust into Shaquille Leonard in terms of where his value had been the past 3 seasons. Like, I'm sorry, the injuries have mounted up. I think I have him like in my 20s, mid to low 20s in dynasty rankings, just because of that. Whether that's fair or not, that's up for debate. That being the case, Zaire Franklin, I'm with you. I don't think he's a one-hit wonder. I think the tackle volume is just going to be there now. Okereke's now with the Giants, so the tackle volume is sure to increase there. Yes, will they insert random linebacker to take his spot? Sure, fine. But Franklin was dominant without somebody who was as good as Okereke. Imagine what he's going to be like when he has to play with somebody who isn't as good as Okereke. He's just going to get to the ball carrier. He's going to do such. Oh my God!
He had over 102 solo tackles last year. I think he had 167 maybe combined tackles, and then those numbers could improve. He was a top 5 linebacker in our scoring last year. So you're telling me that those numbers could absolutely improve? That's putting him in like the Frankie Louvu, Roquan Smith, a Luakon type of conversation here.
Absolutely. Like you talked about it. You just mentioned it. The 167 tackles last year, 102 of those were solo. Obviously, we know that solos count more often than not than assisted. So he's got that going for him. You're not going to have somebody on that team who's going to be siphoning away those solo tackles, bringing him more of a 50-50 split there with the solo to assist. You want for your LB1s to have that great disparity between your solo and assisted tackles. And I think there is no reason as of right now that should not continue to be the case next season.
No, and he's still, I believe he's 20, maybe 26 years old. So he has several highly productive seasons ahead of him, and he stays on the field. He doesn't get hurt. That's a big deal. So awesome. Let me tell you another guy that I love. And I don't know if he repeats the numbers that he put up last year, but that's Patriots cornerback Marcus Jones. If you are in a league, if you're IDP league, even if you're in any league, in my opinion, you should count return yards. Okay. It makes some players a little bit more usable. Your Devin Duvernays and these guys that are the returners. I mean, you could use that depth in bye weeks. So I really love, and I think me and Michael Fabiano has had this conversation before about like every league should have return yards. And I completely agree. It just helps out a little bit and makes that savvy fantasy / dynasty player kind of know their stuff a little bit better. So I kind of segue into Marcus Jones, the returner for New England. Last year, he was an absolute, you call it a Swiss Army knife. You want to call it whatever you want, multi-position. Dude was an absolute cheat code. All right. A cheat code in our scoring. Now it's not crazy scoring. It's nice scoring. I mean, he only had like 2 interceptions all year last year. So it wasn't like the Trayvon Diggs season or the JC Jackson season where they had all these picks and everything. It wasn't like that. Only had 34 tackles, yet he was the highest scoring defensive back in our scoring. He was a number 1 guy over everyone. And that includes safeties. That includes your Derwin James, those types of guys. But I mean, listen to these numbers. He had 34 tackles, 2 interceptions. He had 7 passes defended, and he played more as the season went along. He had a fumble recovery, actually had a pick 6. That's a big deal. But the return yards, he had 362 punt return yards, and 1 returned for a touchdown. He averaged 12.5 yards per return. Doesn't seem like a lot, but there's a lot of fair catches. This guy doesn't do that. He's an absolute threat every time he touches the ball. He had 345 kick return yards. He averaged over 23 yards per kick return. These points add up. And he also, believe it or not, they put him on the field to play a few offensive snaps. He had 4 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown on kind of a screen that was really nice. He scored 190 fantasy points, in our scoring system, which gets me giddy. And the fact that New England has lost Jacoby Myers to free agency, it makes me wonder if they would possibly consider using Marcus Jones a little bit more in the offense. It would be cool. It would be really cool, especially, with your scoring. If a few more receptions doesn't hurt. I don't know if they use him a whole lot more because, again, in my mock draft, I have New England taking Jordan Addison. That's the guy I have them taking to replace the loss of Jacoby Myers. However, I don't see New England doing anything to get in this guy's way. He's still going to be their returner. And I just see him actually improving as an overall corner this following season and then the season after. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think he may have even been a rookie this past year. So he can only get better, in my opinion. So that's a guy that I'm trying to get my hands on everywhere. But you have to have return. I mean, he's not worth that much if you don't have return yards. And if you're in an IDP league, I think you absolutely should, because there are a few safeties. There's a few corners out there that do return, are the team's returners. So it just makes these players a little bit more useful for you. It's just more helpful. But on occasion, you can get a guy like this that's an absolute, I wouldn't call it a league winner, but those numbers were incredible. I mean, there was no DB that scored more than him in fantasy last year. And if he gets a few more snaps on the offense and they get him more involved any way they can, I mean, he's a home run threat when he touches the ball, and he plays a pretty mean defensive back as well, at corner. So,
it's interesting. You're looking at his numbers here, and I remember I think I was looking up him for research purposes like a month ago. Total 39 tackles, okay, but the 34-5 is really impressive. And so what got me looking at him is I was doing some research, looking at corners and looking at their fantasy value, trying to break the code here as far as like where is that coming from. And he actually had quite a number of snaps playing in the box and run support. So you add that to the list of, okay, the pass deflections, the passes defended. You add that to the return yards, which, by the way, I've never heard of this before, using return yards for IDP. You sold me. I love it. That sounds like a fantastic way to play. I'm definitely going to petition this in some of my IDP leagues to adopt this, because this sounds fantastic. But no, this is boom. I love it. Everything you sold me. You sold me on it. It's a great,
bro. He was. I wrote about him so much. I mean, last year when I'll over at DynastyProsFootball.com, I do our weekly waiver wire. I mean, everyone does a waiver wire article. I do a waiver wire ranking when it comes to offense. Like this is the priority kind of 1 to 30 or whatever. However, I do an IDP waiver wire article as well, and I cannot tell you how many times I wrote about him last season. I just go grab him. And if you don't have return yards, even in any fantasy league, it doesn't even have to be an IDP league. In my opinion, I think you should have return yards. It's not a bonus. It's not like, hey, I'm getting 5 extra points for a 40-yard catch or something like that. I'm not a big fan of those bonus points or anything like that. Right. But I think return yards is just like kicking and things like that. It's a part of the game, and you should be rewarded. It just helps you maybe grab a handful of players that might give you a little bit of value on one of those bye weeks. You can plug them in at a flex or something like that. He just happened to be an absolute freak show when it comes to that. And another guy, just between you and me, Keyshawn Nixon from Green Bay, another basically the same kind of player. He's their returner. Okay. And, he was a very, very, very nice scoring defensive back, cornerback eligible, not a safety. He's a corner. So he was another guy that, as far as like points, he was pretty, a top 12, maybe even a top 10 guy last year. That was certainly a target of mine in every league that I can get my hands on him. When you lose out on these safeties and things like that, and, people are taking these Buda Bakers, taking Derwin James, taking these guys early, I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. I got you. I got you. And I go and grab these guys a little later on, and it pays off in the end. So I absolutely, I think you should, if you don't have return yards in a league, you absolutely should be talking to your commissioner about adding that. It adds a little bit more to the game. And like I said, gives you a handful of players that you can actually use as well. So
nice.
Well, all right. Well, let's see here. Any IDP guys, any defensive players you're looking to sell, you're trying to move off of, get rid of? I mean, anybody that sticks out to you?
Yeah, and so truth be told, I acquired him last year, and now I'm trying to move him.
Done it many times.
Yeah, so that is Devondre Campbell, linebacker, Green Bay Packers. Back in 2021, when he didn't have a lot of competition for tackles, he posted 146 total tackles, 102 solo, 44 assisted, finished as the LB4 in Fantasy Pro scoring with 14.8 points per game. Now you enter 2022 with Quay Walker, who everybody was saying after the draft, Quay Walker is basically Devondre Campbell's 1A, his 1 to 1A. Similar skill set, similar metrics coming out of college, similar in a lot of ways. And, unfortunately, when you get that competition for tackles, that's going to kind of take a hit to your fantasy value. Mm-hmm. Now, last year, it is Devondre Campbell, 96 total tackles versus a 146 a couple seasons ago. Instead of 102 to 44, you had a 56 to 40. Okay, so now you're getting me more assisted, less solo. That hurts my fantasy value. Only ended up averaging 11.6 points per game, LB 31. From 4 to 31, that's a pretty huge drop. On top of that, he's now entering his 7th year. I want to be a year early than a year late.
Absolutely.
And that's why I'm looking to move Devontae Campbell.
It makes all the sense in the world. That's how you play Dynasty. That's how you play fantasy. But we're talking Dynasty here, and yes, it's better to move them a year early than a year late. We've all been through it, Derrick Henry. So move off of them when their value is high. I'm a businessman when it comes to Dynasty, bro. I will trade anyone as long as I get the right deal, get the right return, and I don't care. A guy that I'm moving off of, I'm not even going to get into it, Shaq Leonard. I hope that he comes back healthy, and I hope he has a couple, starts the year off, with a bang and has a good game or two and looks like his old self, because, bro, I am selling him. In all honesty, I don't own a single share of this guy. I won't. But there's IDP, like somebody's got him in your league. So if you're watching and you're an owner of this guy, wait to, see if he does come back, see if he plays, the first couple of games and plays well, then sell. He's a ticking time bomb, and we don't have to tell you any more about that. So before we end the show, I like to kind of ask maybe some of these rookies, who's some of your favorite rookies, whether it's an offensive player or a defensive player. You got a couple of guys that really stick out to you that you like, that you're targeting in some of these drafts, even though, Sleeper doesn't have IDP rookies or anything available.
Yeah. So I got 2 defensive backs. One, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard of. Another one who I'll start off with, I'm pretty sure a lot of you may have not heard of. And with good reason. He hasn't been getting a lot of press lately. He wasn't even invited to the NFL Combine. He's had an up and down season and career in college. Ended up transferring to, I want to say, San Mateo Community College 1 year. Really produced really well. Went to Oregon, and I'm talking about Bennett Williams. Now, Pro Football Focus has him categorized as a cornerback. But every scouting report I've read about this guy says he's basically a glorified safety. They call him a safety. Like I said, he wasn't invited to the Combine, had his ups and downs at college, but his last year at Oregon was pretty freaking phenomenal. 7 total tackles, 48 to 24, so good solo to assist, 8 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions. Had a total tackle rate of 9.1% as a overall as a slot corner / strong safety, which is not too much higher, not too much lower than the next guy I'm going to be talking about that I'm sure people have heard of. He tackles very well. He gets downhill very well against, this according to scouting reports that I've read about this guy. He will be an efficient tackling machine, tackling box safety during the season. That could pay huge dividends for you come bye weeks. Again, depending on landing spot. Isn't that so funny? Like, we can't help but say depending on landing spot. There should be like a chime whenever somebody says depending on landing spot. But again, somebody that in the back of your mind here, just store that name, Bennett Williams. Good run stopping tackling safety. Could be a really good underdog story just from a humanitarian point of view, and showed last season that when put into the right position, he can produce. So just keep that name in the back of your head. The next one, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard of. He's going is basically the number 1 rated defensive back, and that's Brian Branch, Alabama. Yeah. Talk about tackle rate versus the run, 15.3%, elite. You look at the 90 total tackles, 58 to 32, 7 pass breakups, 3 sacks, 2 interceptions. He's Mr. Do-It-All. He is my DB1 overall in this rookie class, as I'm sure he is for a lot of managers out there. He is Mm, mm. Just so good. Can do it all as a playmaker on anywhere you want to line him up, whether it's rushing the passer, blitzing the passer, helping in run support, man coverage, tackles. I mean, tackle. It just tackle. This
Does it
guy
all.
does it all. So Brian Branch,
Where would
absolutely.
be a good spot for him? You know, what's a good landing spot for Branch?
I'd say goodbye, Buda Baker. Hello, Brian Branch.
Mm. Mm. So you're thinking maybe you think he slips to maybe that third pick in the second round to Arizona?
I think he is first round talent. Now,
I
whether or not that
I
team
have
may,
him going in the first round in my mock.
I think he is first round talent. Where could he? That's such a great question.
Let me tell you where I've got him going.
Yeah, please to do.
Well, he's part of a trade. Okay.
All right.
Let's just say I have, we had 9 trades in the first round last year. It was absolutely just crazy and delicious. We loved it. We ate it up. Okay.
Absolutely.
My mock, I have 4 trades in the first round. Kind of light, whatever. However, I do have the Baltimore Ravens trading out of pick 22, trading back a handful of positions. Okay. Basically, the Dallas Cowboys jump up from 26 to 22 to take a particular player. So at 26, I have the Ravens trading back once again. There's no denying, like, they have been very vocal about picking up extra picks this year. And if they can trade back a few spots so Dallas can move up and grab a particular player, I have them trading back again from 26 back to 30 with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, wow.
And I have the Eagles leapfrogging 2 teams at 27 and 28 that need safety help. And that is, I believe, the Cincinnati Bengals and Buffalo Bills, I believe. Both of those teams need safety help. So I have Philly jumping up to pick 26 right in front of those guys and taking Brian Branch. I mean, they lost both of their safeties to free agency. So, I mean, there's probably not a team that needs one more than these guys.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah, so I thought that'd be an interesting scenario there, that they jump up and grab him. And golly, I mean, if Philly wasn't scary enough,
right?
My gosh,
that's fantastic. That would make some headlines. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, it'd be huge. So I do have him. It's kind of crazy, but I do have him dropping back that far. I mean, just the way this draft, this mock, shapes out. It was ruled. I mean, those corners and those edge rushers really, really took over, and a handful of linemen and a few tight ends. So, it just caused him to kind of slip back more and more and more. And finally, Philly sees the opportunity to jump up and grab him, especially ahead of the 2 teams that really, really need safeties almost as much as they do. So just made sense all around. So, well, cool. Well, Jorge, man, thank you so much for being on the show. Like I said, I couldn't admire you any more than I do. It would be unhealthy if I admired you anymore. So just a huge fan of yours, huge fan of the website, fantasyandframes.com. I advise everyone to go check you out over there and give you a follow on Twitter as well. And like I said, find you on YouTube, subscribe to your channel. And if you haven't subscribed to ours, do us a big favor and hit that subscribe button as well. We're part of the Dynasty Pros network, and we also team up with IDP guys as well. And what's a bigger IDP site than those guys? Lots of great people over there as well. So for myself, for Jorge, we appreciate you watching. Tune in a couple of weeks, and we'll be back with another episode of the Dynasty Pros IDP show. Take care, everybody.
See ya.